just because I think a lot of what happened in this part of Scoop coincides with a lot of the themes that we talked about today. So when we were last in this book, the protagonist, who is a nature writer named William Boot, who has been mistakenly sent to a war in Abyssinia or modern day Ethiopia, and along with
or maybe not even not much of a war. He's sent in the belief that there's a war going on, but when he gets there, it's a little less than that.
Not only that, it's there's absolutely nothing going on, and he ends up in the capital. And when we left him last, the big joke was that all of the journalists had mistakenly reported the arrival of this Russian ambassador. Turned out to be all wrong.
Soviet agitator.
A Soviet agitator. This time, what's happened is one of the reporters has gotten it into his head to go out into the field and apparently has news that there's something going on in a place called Lakhu. And so all of the reporters are going to leave the capital. Now, William finds out from talking to somebody in town that Lakhu is actually an Ishmaelite word that means no place, and there's nothing there, absolutely nothing. So all the reporters
go on a snipe hunt.
They go on a snipe hunt. They all leave town, leaving William alone in Jacksonburg, where he is fired and then unfired, and then while everybody's gone, two things happen. One, he invents a whole bunch of history, and that prompts real history to happen, where there's sort of a coup, where there's a real socialist takeover of the capital, and he's sort of a hero for doing nothing, for refusing to participate in the scrum, and just by staying in place and looking out his window, he does a better job than everybody else.
Well, that's a great point. See, to kind of restate what you said, all these other reporters have decided that the way to do it is as a group. It kind of divides the responsibility. It, keeps the team spirit going, and it allows people to be comfortable too. So they get their retinues, they get their, what they call their boys, they get their drivers and their other factotums, and they all leave town as a group for this non-existent place. And it happens, they all get stuck in the mud on the way there and, are just completely bogged down. But meanwhile, back in the capital, William has fallen in love for the first time. He falls in love with this strange girl who you don't know if she's Polish, Hungarian, German, or whatever. She says she's married, but it's unclear to whom, or if she is even. She's wanting money. She sells him a bunch of rocks at some point that supposedly belong to her husband. You can tell she's a schemer, but you can also tell that he is a little inexperienced in love and is being taken advantage of. And so for whatever reason, he stays behind and doesn't join the group. And she goes out one night, remember, and she hears a rumor, about the president, I think, being drunk and kept in his room by his relatives or whatever. And that becomes the scoop, that there has been a coup d'etat, that some kind of a junta has imprisoned the president.
He sends a hilarious telegram. So after continually sending these telegrams back to the Beast, sorry to be a bore, but nothing really happening there. I'll write you if anything happens. They keep sending him telegrams.
The weather's getting worse, he says.
Yeah, weather getting worse. They fire him, and he writes, press collect Beast London. Nothing much has happened except to the president, who has been imprisoned in his own palace by revolutionary junta. headed by a superior black called Benito and Russian Jew who Bannister said is up to no good. They say he is drunk when his children try to see him, but governess says, most unusual, lovely spring weather, bubonic plague raging. And so everybody goes bananas back in London. They print the story that the president has been imprisoned. Then he goes on. Once he does that once he breaks the seal on inventing, he does it again. He goes into a frenzy of creation and sends them even more crazy stuff that's completely nuts, and they love him. He becomes a star, but sort of inadvertently, this triggers an actual, real revolt in the capital.
Which is a very sophisticated point that we should appreciate that Waugh introduced, and I think we have forgotten, which is, if there is no news, report news and make news. And that was Russiagate.
Exactly.
That's exactly how Russiagate happened.
This exact story is Russiagate.
Yes. Yeah. And also, who's the real reporter in this story? It's the woman, actually. She's the one who actually went out and, I don't know, got drunk and flirted or went to a party or something and found out what's going on, which everyone has scrupulously refused to do in this story so far. They've all hung out in rooms together, drunk together and so on. But the woman, just by accident, actually goes out into society and does something and comes back with the story. She's the reporter.
Right. She's the actual digger, and he just happens to be, have some proximity.
Right.
But the overall narrative it's such a perfect overlay on so many modern American stories. It's the WMD story. It's this story. I mean, it's very much the WMD story where, we sent reporters out to the middle of nowhere to look for something that wasn't there, but that never was there, right? And in this case, where there's, there are clues that anybody who was actually paying attention would pick up on, that the people in the Capitol want all the journalists out of town because they're planning a coup. But they all go because it's one of the characteristics of the media is that they all go in groups constantly. They go where everybody else is. They think that's where the news is. It's sort of like in communist societies where you see people getting in line for something. Everybody gets online before they know what the line is for, and journalists do exactly the same thing. They definitely do with like campaign reporting. Everybody goes in a scrum as soon as they see people going in one direction, and that's how you miss the story. If you follow everybody else, you will miss it most of the time.
So, to sort of consider the serious implications of Waugh's thesis that reporting the news can create the news. How many stories have you seen over the past few years about, is America on the verge of a civil war? Well, in other words, the real news is America, despite all its problems, is not having a civil war, okay? Just like Ishmailia isn't. But that hasn't prevented 10,500 stories per year on whether we might have one, in the hope that any incident can be construed as perhaps the beginning of one, or maybe something that will touch one off, or a sign that one is inevitable. And we do this to ourselves in the media almost reflexively at this point. We talk about things as though talking about them is the sign that they might be happening, or maybe a way of making them happen. And I all that NPR stuff we just listened to was in some ways the art of making news out of nothing. I mean, in other words, they tried to keep LGBTQ and other people's, conflict alive through some sort of weird dinosaur story about, non members of the group adopting a mascot that's very important to the group. And that would be a story if it led to a fight. That would be a story if there were a murder or a riot, and then that's the backstory. But giving the backstory without there actually being any event attached is one of our sicknesses at this point,
Absolutely. Yeah. No. And if you do enough, there's a scene in this book where William protests. He's like, there's no news here. What am I supposed to do? And then the other person says, well, for heaven's sake, invent some. And that's what we do all the time. And it's not a consequence-free activity. It ends up actually doing quite a lot of damage.
Yeah.
One other small thing I wanted to ask you about, because this is something that I always found funny. There's a scene where all the journalists are sort of like they're bored and they're all like cobbled together in a room, and they start talking tough to each other. And one of them says, "Go on, sock me one. See what you got." "I don't want to sock you one. You sock me first." Go sock him one. Just you give me a poke in the nose and see what you'll get. And they end up kind of like having a little fight. This is actually a thing. I've seen this a bunch of times where journalists have fights, like physical fights. The first time I saw it, probably. I wanted to bring up this example. This is a famous example where sports writers got in a fight at a John McEnroe press conference at Wimbledon. But journalists have the stupidest fights and the most embarrassing fights in history. Let's just show this one.
It's a press conference with John McEnroe personally. I think that, and this is Wimbledon, as James pointed out on that day. Wimbledon is the biggest tennis tournament in the world. People like to.
Yeah, but he doesn't need you chipping in all the time. I mean, are you employed by him?
Let him speak.
He walked out on it.
Sure he did, because you drove him over. No, he didn't. Let him speak. He's got a job to do, so have you. Let it stand to that, right?
We got Charlie Steiner.
Cheating. You're cheating was the question that riled him. You're
Cheating?
That's right.
That's an accusatory question. That's
a fair question.
It is not a fair question. Are you cheating?
That's a fair question.
Oh, come on, man. You're crazy.
Because you have
All I said was it's his news conference and not his. That's all I
This
said.
guy stands on a chair now.
You pointed your damn finger at me. Don't point your finger at me, mister.
Cut it out. Both of you. Come on.
So have you ever seen this one? I saw this happen at a boxing match. We can stop it. Where it was like a private event where a bunch of journalists were invited to watch a boxing at a Russian country club, and they served lobster, and some of the Russian journalists were trying to eat each other's lobster, and you know the part of the lobster that you can't eat, with like the
winter claws.
Yeah. Well, one of them grabbed that, and there ended up being a scrum exactly like that in the middle of the boxing thing, while guys were actually boxing. I've also seen it on the campaign plane. It never actually came to blows, but people pushing each other over like their place in line and everything. They're a very petty group of people, but I don't know if this is an important point or not. I just thought it was funny that he thought to bring it up.
Well, I think that the universal truth that he's pointing his finger at is that when people are bored, when they expect drama and their job is to find it and there is none, they make it among themselves. Also, I got to say, you're talking first about something that happened in Russia, and then we just saw that Wimbledon stuff. I'd say that the foreign journalism
that's true. Yep.
scene is a little livelier than the American one usually. I mean,
it's a little more drunk too.
And also, they don't have much money. See, nowadays, maybe we see stars on cable TV and we think of them as rich people. But out on the road, it really is a question of who got in line first for the buffet, and
Right.
who got the better lobster, and who gets this or that preference in some situation. Journalists are very petty people when it comes to their expense accounts, to their accommodation, to the car rental being the right. I had a mid-size, not a compact, man.
Right. Exactly.
We're only giving you a budget for a compact. How do you expect me to drive 600 miles across Iowa in a frickin' compact?
And it is Iowa, by the way.
Yeah,
you have to drive.
exactly. So I think he's just getting at the pettiness, and he's subverting their pretensions to grandiose, thoughtful, intellectual status, which I actually think is a good thing to remember about journalists.
Totally.
Even though the NPR people sound like they could all be teaching at Swarthmore or something.
No, it's a crucial part of this whole thing is that these are not like they're not like rocket scientists. They can be tricked into all going into the middle of the desert where there is nothing, and risk their lives to do it. And it's a continual theme in our journalism that we just send the entire press corps off on these snipe hunts, and it's just funny that it's predicted so perfectly in this book. So
also a lot of men without women. I saw it.
Oh my God! Oh yes, yes, that is definitely a thing. You know what? You're absolutely right. I don't know why it's the case. It's not so much anymore the case that foreign journalists were always all men. I think that started to change in the 90s and the 2000s.
Mm-hmm.
But the drunkenness and the little enmities that break out, sometimes actually over the available female population, that probably does happen on the road. And in Waugh's time, I'm sure happened a lot more. So. But anyway, interesting part of the book. We'll wrap that up on Monday.